Hey, what's up guys, Riff here. So in yesterday's video, I said we would not be talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows again unless something big happens, and unfortunately, a lot has happened over the past 24 hours. It's been an absolute dumpster fire, and I want to share what's going on. So we have everything from content creators publicly crashing out over criticism of this game, to this official Ubisoft account feuding with people on twitter.com. It's an absolute mess, and let's start with this right here. So this is how it all began with the Twitter feud here. It began with Grums, aka Mark Kern, a former team lead at Blizzard, saying this: you can tell a lot about Ubisoft with how much money they're throwing at terrorist platforming streamers, referring to Hassan Piker, who was paid to promote this game. And then Elon Musk, of all people, responds by saying Hassan is a fraud, and then adds on, sellout would be more accurate. Objectively, he is promoting a terrible game just for the money. And then the official Assassin's Creed account replies to that saying, is that what the guy playing your Path of Exile 2 account told you? Getting 600,000 likes, by the way. Then Mark Kern replies that with this article saying Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't the hit Ubisoft desperately needs, analyst says. And then the Assassin's Creed account replies again saying, our game is out, referring to the fact that Mark Kern has a crowdfunded game that he has not completed yet. So yes, looking at these replies and the interactions, I mean, they made some good burns. Like, I can say this game is not very good, and I can also say these were good burns, right, of Elon and Mark Kern. There's no denying that, but this is what it really shows me. It's that Assassin's Creed, Shadows, and Ubisoft have taken off the gloves, but not in a good way. Okay, when you're resorting to feuding with people on Twitter as an account and a company like this, I think you've lost the plot, all right? And the sad reality of this is there's more people interacting with these replies from the Assassin's Creed Shadows account than there are people interacting with Assassin's Creed Shadows. And the numbers are not looking good. Right now, 35,000 in-game players. It's plateaued for the day already. It's a lower peak than yesterday. That's the trend over the past couple of days. And only a week after its release, it's already about halved its player count, which is insane to think about for an Assassin's Creed title like this. And also it goes to show you people on Twitter are full of it. There was hundreds, if not thousands, of people saying just because of those interactions, they were going to go out and buy Assassin's Creed Shadows. Well, it made absolutely no difference whatsoever, and the downward trend has continued. Now, I pointed out a response to this saying the game is out, and I said so is Schedule 1, which is crushing Assassin's Creed Shadows in concurrent player numbers right now. And then people were coping in the proposed community notes, saying stuff that's completely unrelated to anything I said, but that's just cope from people who are defending Ubisoft. And today, things have gotten even worse. Look at the player number for Schedule 1, 141,000 players versus 35,000 with Shadows. A complete crushing of the competition, and people cope and say, well, wait a second, Schedule 1's only $17. Well, yeah, so is the price of a Ubisoft Plus subscription, which is how most people are playing that game. So I think it is somewhat comparable, and mainly it just shows that a random game like this can overtake a big title like Assassin's Creed Shadows with absolutely no effort. I think there's something to be said there. But this is the other part of the video I want to talk about. A major set of crash outs from a YouTuber named Fightin' Cowboy. So this clip went viral. I noticed this when it happened back about a week ago, shortly after the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows. This guy is a gaming content creator, and someone came into his chat, I guess a couple people, talking about Yasuke and how he's black and they don't want to see this game and all this stuff. And he crashes out for 2 minutes here in a profanity-laced rant where he's just going off on these people. And he got a lot of support, but he also started to get a lot of criticism, which he felt the need to address. Now, who is this guy, right? He's the Fightin' Cowboy. In my own definition here, I'd say more like fleeing soy boy, because he doesn't have that much fight in him, right? I mean, he's blocking pretty much everyone who dares to criticize Ubisoft. I've never interacted with this guy before. In fact, I didn't know who he was until this crash out. And that's not me thumbing my nose at the guy. He's obviously successful. He has like 1.5 million subs on YouTube. Clearly, he's a successful creator. I just haven't come across him until this moment. And he would respond to everything going on with a 30-minute stream on YouTube. I was not aware of this until today. I don't really know how this slipped under my radar. But his response to everything, the crash out and the criticism people have given him, is a hard watch. This is a hard watch of a video where basically this guy demonstrates himself as the most clear-cut example of a real-life NPC I've ever seen. Basically, he goes by the motto of shut up and consume products, where in this video, he basically tries to gaslight everyone watching into believing that all criticism of this game is just the work of grifters. In fact, he goes a step further and tries to claim that the current issues with the gaming industry, the reason it's in the state that it is not because of studios. It's not because of consultants or activists in the field. It's not because of consumers who keep supporting slop. It's all because of grifters, aka people he disagrees with, aka anyone who has the nerve to criticize companies like Ubisoft, which is a very funny statement to say if he truly believes it, because he's basically labeling a handful of people, a couple handfuls of people, as probably the most powerful forces in the gaming industry. If a few dozen YouTubers who criticize the gaming industry can actually damage it and lead it into the state that it is now, wow, that is a powerful group of human beings right there. But it's, of course, copium for a guy who's trying to shield these companies from criticism while gaslighting his viewers into believing some of the most ridiculous things about recent gaming controversies. And I want to start off with this clip right here, because this really gives you a good taste of what this guy is all about. Prepare yourself, by the way.
And then, of course, your typical grifters, they like to make up bullshit. You know, oh, woke leftist Cowboy is, I don't know, shilling for Ubisoft and blah, blah, blah. Because none of them actually have a point to stand on. They're all little, you know, weak-willed men that like to hide behind avatars or made-up names. And they don't actually stand on business. They don't. They probably don't stand at all. I can't imagine most of these people are active. They probably don't go to the gym. They probably don't work out. They probably just sit inside all day and hide. But that's beyond the point, okay?
Basically, anytime he says anything, he ends it with, but that's beyond the point. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, right? So we begin with a whole lot of projection and this whole thing about working out making your opinion more valid. Like, because he works out, his opinion somehow matters more than someone who doesn't, which is a ridiculous thing to say. For example, personally, I work out about 4 or 5 times a week. I've been working out since I was 13. I've been an athlete most of my life. That doesn't make my opinion any better than anyone else. And if you believe that, you are genuinely stupid. And you're compensating for something. You're compensating for a lack of a real argument. And also, it just looks incredibly insecure. That flex right there, what are you doing, man? Like, seriously, I hate, forgive me, guys. I'm going to use some TikTok Zoomer language here. That gave me the ick. That made me physically recoil. That was cringe. Basically, like, oh, I see all these losers criticizing me. I'm going to hit them with the flex. It's cringe, man. And then you got this whole part about, oh, these people don't go outside. These grifters, they don't go outside. Dude, you play video games for a living. What are you talking about? Telling people that they don't go outside and trying to shame them for that? That's a very weird approach. But then you also have this whole thing about anons, right? People being anonymous and not using their real names and using avatars and stuff like that. First of all, anyone who wants to force people to use their legal and real names and identification on social media in order to be able to criticize people, that's super weird behavior. But also, talk about made up names. My brother in Christ, your name is Fightin' Cowboy. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not on your government ID. So that's a very weird thing to say. And also calling people weak-willed men because they dare to criticize these companies. First of all, projection. And also, if you notice in that clip and the whole video, his voice is literally shaking the whole time. Like, he's getting so wrapped up in his emotions because someone dared to call out Ubisoft and other companies like that. It's very, very strange. Now, here is the real irony of this. What I'm going to do here is a little different because this is a long video. I'm just going to take his key points, tell you what they are, and I'm going to give a quick response to it. Because honestly, if you want to get an in-depth breakdown of all this with all the receipts and everything, I highly recommend this video by Endymion. Okay? I'm going to put a link to this in the description if you want a long 33-minute breakdown of this. I highly recommend this because the irony of this is that I was listening to his video as background noise while I was at the gym today. So that's pretty ironic given these circumstances and what this guy's saying. But again, in this video, Endymion absolutely blasts this guy. Like, have you ever seen that meme with the coughing baby versus Atom Bomb? That was Fighting Cowboy versus Endymion. It's an absolute bloodbath of a video, just dismantling everything this guy's trying to say. So let's go back to Fighting Cowboy for a second. So he makes a bunch of different points. Point number one involves Yasuke and Assassin's Creed Shadows. He begins by saying it's basically up for historical debate whether or not Yasuke is a samurai. There's a lot of historians who say he is, and basically if you don't like that, get over it. Well, of course, the only people who have ever cited that he's a samurai begins with Thomas Lockley, who we all know is a disgraced historian who literally vandalized the Yasuke Wikipedia page and used his own book as a source. And when he was exposed for all this stuff because there was no merit to any of his claims, he immediately deactivated every social media account, and we've never heard from him since. And the only other person who even attempted to make this claim was a Japanese historian who's a member of their Communist Party who believes in the Marxist theory of producing history where they think you can make historical claims without empirical evidence. Basically saying, I feel like something happened. I feel like Yasuke was a samurai because it just feels right, even though I have no evidence. That's the two guys, that's the two historians who have been absolutely ripped apart by other Japanese historians. Those are the only two. So no, we're not going to accept that he is a samurai. He was a retainer. That's what the historical evidence suggests. It's very fair to criticize that, especially since that historical inaccuracy is the key to why he's even a co-protagonist on an Assassin's Creed game in the first place. They wouldn't take a retainer and have him in that role. They had to make him a samurai. And they did this while promising many times over this game is going to be as historically accurate as possible. And they obviously didn't do that. And they did this to make Yasuke into the position that he was. Then we see stuff with Oda Nobunaga. He mentions this in his video as well, and basically ignores the fact that people in Japan in particular are highly offended by the way this historical figure and his family have been portrayed, especially his sister, who is literally has an option of getting banged by Yasuke in this game. This is a woman who is dubbed the Mother of Japan, who then produced a line of emperors. And she's so loyal, she was so loyal to her husband, that she chose to die by his side when he was under attack. She could have escaped. No, she decided to die by his side. She was that loyal. But in this game, she has the option of getting banged by Oda's, basically the guy he paid to have by his side. It's ridiculous. Do you see why people are offended? Now, he does this whole bit about, we got to expand our viewpoints of the world. We're not just white dudes here. We got to expand. Well, Japan is someone who's very offended by this to the point where it's gone before their national dai, which is the highest level of government. And the Prime Minister of Japan literally talked about this game in some of its aspects and called it disrespectful. You don't care about what they have to say, clearly, or you're just not aware. Then he also says this is all manufactured outrage with shadows, mainly by white dudes. And understand this. This guy is a shill for Ubisoft. He got early access to this game because he has a relationship with Ubisoft. That's why you won't catch him criticizing anything they do, because it's in his financial interest to do so. It's so obvious. But then he blames everything on grifters. It's unbelievable. Then the next claim, it's a little tangent about him being a big, straight white dude. Take a shot every time he says it. It's unbelievable. Big straight white dude. And he says, as a big straight white dude, we have to do better. People just hate representation that's not them. People hate seeing diversity in games, which is ridiculous because he's using Assassin's Creed Shadows for that. The worst franchise he could use to prove his point. Assassin's Creed not only has had black characters in lead positions, they are riddled with minorities in places as high as protagonists all throughout, beginning right with the first game, a Middle Eastern man, Altair. Like, people didn't have an issue with him or Connor, a Native American in Assassin's Creed 3. People didn't have an issue with those characters because they made sense for the environment and the story. It was organic. Yasuke being chosen as the representation of feudal Japan is forced. If you can't see why it's forced, there's no helping you. You've been consumed by the Ubisoft propaganda there. And of course, he talks over and over again about people not wanting to see other perspectives and things like that. Again, with Japan, he clearly doesn't care what Japan has to say about any of this. The fighting cowboy does not have time to listen to what the Japanese have to say about their own history being rewritten by a game claiming it's historically accurate. And then he goes into this wild tangent about how the media is not against white Christians. And he says basically anyone upset about this is a white male Christian living in a small town, which is a gross overgeneralization of people who were criticizing this game. And also to believe that Christianity is some fixture of the media that's always protected. Brother, I know you're an NPC, but open your eyes, dude. Do you see what happens in the media and in society at large? How Christianity is the biggest punching bag of any religion out there. It is the safe edgy. Making fun of Christians and Christianity is safe edgy. It's just like how people can make fun of white people and get away with it. Have you not opened your eyes to this? It's right in front of you. But then he gets this cocky tangent where he's like, I'm going to open up my game files or my video history here and stream history. And I'm just going to pull out random games I've played or seen or come across. And I'm going to point out the dumb controversies and show you how stupid they all are. He begins with Stellar Blade. And he says that people were upset about a titty window being censored and interrupting their gooning session, which is, again, we hear this bullcrap talk and language all the time, where he fails to acknowledge that journalists came out with hit pieces on Shift Up, the development team, saying all these disparaging things about them, shaming this design and the people who made it. In fact, there's a famous IGN France article where they basically say the person who designed this has never touched a woman, and implying they're an incel, right? Little did they know, the main creator of Stellar Blade is a married man. And also, his wife was on the art team that helped design these outfits. So that was ridiculous, and a lot of people saw that. But here was the main issue. The game was advertised by Shift Up as uncensored on release, that the outfits would not be censored on release. And that's what happened. Once it was officially released, they did a rug pull with some of the outfits and censored them. And people had an issue with that. If it's such a minor thing as this guy is suggesting, why did they change it? If it's not a big deal, why did they change it? And you're not getting what you paid for. I know people like to just shut up and consume products. But in this case, they promised something and they didn't deliver. And people had an issue with that. And I am very happy with Stellar Blade. Great game. I'm very glad of all the achievements it did. It's a great success. But that was the one blemish on Stellar Blade, was that basically swap on the outfit and whether or not it was going to be censored. So then he talks about Dragon Age the Veilguard and says the only reason people didn't like that game was because Tash was non-binary, which he's right. People had issue with that because it was cringe and it was shoved into your face at every single moment, and it reflected the type of people working on this game at BioWare who are narcissists, and they're doing self-inserts into the story and putting all their own agenda into it just for their own personal desires. It was very obvious. But overall, beyond that, the game was trash. It was a husk of what Dragon Age is all about, and the numbers show it. Nobody liked the game. It was overall a gigantic disappointment, and because it was so bad, we're never going to see another Dragon Age game, okay? Then he switches to Avowed, where he says pronouns were the only issue, which again, gross oversimplification of what's going on here. Pronouns were something that became an issue because of the behavior of people on their staff. Elon Musk commented on a tweet that was talking about pronouns being in the game, and then one of the art directors came out and basically said, I made this game to spite people like you, showing that their artistic vision has been corrupted by their own hatred of people like Elon Musk. And that same person said that they don't like white people, that they give black artists advantages when they're working with them solely based on the color of their skin. There was a lot of reasons people didn't like that game and the team behind it. Then he talks about gender options, where he tries to do this like gotcha moment where he's like, listen up, guys. There's always been gender options in games, you know? Haha, gotcha. And he's right. There's been gender options for as long as I can remember. The first Pokemon game I ever played, the first thing they ask you is, are you male or are you female? And if you ask Fightin' Cowboy how many genders there are, I'm not sure what answer you're going to get. But in this case, yeah, they gave options back then. 2 of them. You were either a fightin' cowboy or you were a fightin' cowgirl. It's as simple as that. They didn't have non-binary options. They didn't have they, them, z, them, whatever we're doing nowadays. Those were not a part of it. So that is the worst gotcha I have seen. In fact, it kind of just blows up in his face. But really, that sums it up. Okay, I think this is massive projection, a very weird attempt to create drama for himself. You know, he tries to base his whole crash out on the fact that there were a couple of viewers saying disparaging things about Yasuke as a black man. Not because of anything to do with the game, just because he was black. And if he wants to ban someone like that from his chat, more power to him. It's his channel. He can do whatever he wants. But then he adds in all of these other games and controversies, and he links them to the initial issue with these chatters. So now he's opening himself up to all of the things we just went through. These are things he self-created. He didn't have to talk about these things, but he felt the need to own the grifters. And at this point, pretty much prove that these so-called grifters seem to know a lot more about games than he does. Because he basically showed that, yeah, he might be a great gamer, but he doesn't know what's going on with these games, the controversies, what's going on in the communities. He's been either blind to it, or he's intentionally ignoring it because it's in his interest to do so. But that's going to do it for this video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.